Seems like maybe those guys need to take a chill pill, if you know what I mean. So now it looks like Washington, D.C. could be known around the country for something else. The Washington, D.C. City Council voted today to legalize the use of marijuana for medical uses. And now, as the home of the federal government and the capital of the U.S., this might come as a shock. Yet, as the Washington Post points out, the city of Washington, D.C. already has quite an affinity for Mary Jane, because according to federal surveys, D.C. ranks very high amongst cities where weed use is common, and this certain fondness is growing. So maybe this gives us a clue to where President Obama's famous cool comes from. Just kidding. Now, if only John Boehner and Patrick Kennedy could also get on board. But let's get real here, you guys. America is thought of as a prudish country by most others. It's a country that prides itself on its morality. And yet it seems like we're leading the way in legalizing medical marijuana. So if it does indeed become legal here in the nation's capital, what does that mean for America's image abroad? Here to discuss it with me, I have Mike Meno, Director of Communications at the Marijuana Policy Project. Mike, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I think that it's pretty obvious if you think of states like California, states like Colorado that constantly are the butt of jokes, if people want to call them stoners, hippies, whatnot. But Washington, D.C., this seems a little out of character that they would want to legalize marijuana, don't you think?
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is medical marijuana is increasingly becoming a mainstream issue among Americans. Right now, there are 14 states where medical marijuana is legal, and we're not just talking about the West Coast. We're talking about Midwestern states like Michigan, small New England states like Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont. In fact, all across the country, there are more than a dozen states considering medical marijuana right now, including culturally conservative states like Tennessee, Alabama, Kansas. This is really becoming a mainstream issue supported by Americans everywhere.
But I think that's where we can break it down, too, as you said, that even culturally conservative states. In that case, does it no longer become an issue of culture, but perhaps is it one about the economy? Because so many states are pushing this forward because of the recession, saying that this is really going to rake in the dough.
Well, this vote today wasn't about money. This vote was about providing compassionate care for some of the district's most vulnerable residents. And while other states are beginning to have a conversation about perhaps taxing and regulating marijuana, for right now, medical marijuana is seen as a healthcare measure, not as a revenue-generating measure.
Okay, but you know how they always call marijuana the, what is it, the gateway, what's the drug? The gateway drug. The gateway drug. There you go. If you smoke weed, then you are absolutely guaranteed to move on to worse things after that, and perhaps more harsh. So in that case, if D.C. did legalize medical marijuana, are people automatically going to think that then you're going to legalize marijuana as a whole?
These are separate issues. What medical marijuana laws do is they provide qualified patients. We're talking about seriously ill people, people with HIV and AIDS, cancer, multiple sclerosis, glaucoma. This is not about recreational use. These are providing seriously ill people with much needed medical care.
But you know, in California, I feel like that system tends to be abused a little bit, because I'm from California, and they're constantly, you know, a lot of the conversations are, oh, if you know the right doctor, then you just come in and you say you got a little backache, or that I have headaches and they just won't go away, and instantly you get prescribed this cannabis club card.
Well, California passed the nation's first medical marijuana law in 1996, but if you look at the states that have passed since then, and again, I'm stressing 13 other states across the country, and now we're going to have the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, being a jurisdiction that has legal medical marijuana. You'll see those programs being well run, enjoying popular support, and I can't emphasize enough that this is something Americans support. The latest polls show that more than 80% of Americans support medical marijuana laws.
All right, now I do want to broaden this discussion, as I did in my introduction, because I was saying that around the world, many people think of America, this is somewhere where we're always preaching about our morality, so many people think that America is a little prudish. I mean, just recently, it was the state album of Virginia where there was a Greek goddess on it and there was a breast showing, and that had to be hidden. This is a country where things like that are forbidden. But if in this nation's capital legal or medical marijuana was legalized, do you think that the rest of the world would then change their thoughts on America? Would see the country differently?
Well, obviously, medical marijuana in the nation's capital has great value in terms of expanding the debate over medical marijuana. Like I said, there are more than a dozen states across the country that are considering these laws, and they're going to be looking to the nation's capital as an example. And especially here, where we have federal lawmakers in D.C. every day, this provides a really great opportunity to bring congressmen from states who perhaps have never seen a working medical marijuana law up close. We can bring them to dispensaries. We can have them meet patients. This is a great opportunity for public education about medical marijuana issues.
All right, tell me this. This is maybe you think a little bit of a random question, but these federal lawmakers, they are technically residents of other states, but since they spend so much of their time working here in the nation's capital, if they are sick, are they allowed to take advantage of these medical marijuana laws?
This law would apply only to district residents, and perhaps more importantly, it would only apply to doctors within the District of Columbia as well.
All right. Now, what are the chances, do we think, of this actually passing? Because there was a yes vote on it today, but next it has to go to Mayor Fenty. Do we think it's going to be a thumbs up?
All indications are that the mayor will sign this, and we are looking forward to seeing a well-working medical marijuana law in the nation's capital.
And then could the U.S. Congress, after that, could they turn this down and overturn the mayor's approval?
There's a 30-day review period that Congress has because they control a lot of what goes on in the district. There's been no indication that they would intervene to stop this, and it's worth pointing out that this law is only coming out about now because Congress lifted a ban of more than a decade that stopped the implementation of this law. This law was first passed in 1998 by nearly 70% of district voters. This is something with lots of public support behind it.
All right, well, I think we will have to wait and see what happens, but for today there was a yes vote in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., to legalize medical marijuana.